Okay, so without further ado, after you have your folder on your desktop, whether you've cloned it using GitHub or using VS Code, I'm just going to close out of this. And I'm going to open my folder right here. It's on my desktop. It's the CS231. Okay. We don't. Continue. All right, cool. Okay, I don't care. That's fine. If you need to uninstall GitLens if it's giving you a hard time. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to create 3 folders. We're going to create, 2 folders at least. We're going to have a includes folder, which we will put our header folder, our header file in. We're going to have, we're going to have another folder, and that's going to be our images. And we're going to have one more folder, and that's going to be our CSS. All of this is lowercase. And I'm going to make sure that all the folders are outside of each other. So they're all in this root kind of directory of CS230 in my case. Whatever you ended up calling yours is whatever it is. So anyway, all the CSS files that we make for this entire semester will go in our CSS folder. All of the images that we'll be using for the web pages themselves, for like our about page or generic pictures that we use, will go in our images folder. When we make the login page in the next class and we continue on with that for profiles, those will be a different folder. We want to kind of separate out the generic folders that we're going to use for everything and the pictures that are specific to users and so forth. We're going to be using a simplified example. We're not going to store the actual picture in our databases. We're going to store the path to that picture. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to have this includes folder. So includes is like a very common kind of industry standard folder that's used to have all of our kind of resource files, like all of our helper functions. Those are going to go in our includes folder. And then all of the pages that go in our like that are actually part of the site itself, like the ones that you will actually see and interact with, those go in the main directory so that they can access things very, very easily without having to do any weird path kinds of things. So let's start off with moving this test.php into our includes folder right here. That way, because we're not going to do the header file this week, probably, we're going to save that for next week because it has Bootstrap. And I want to give you guys the intro to HTML this week as it is. So anyway, first thing we're going to do is we're going to just click outside in this like gray general pane right here so that we're not inside any of these directories. And we're going to make a new file. This is going to be our index.php page. This is the first page that you're going to see. Now, we're not going to have any kind of PHP going on in this particular lab. What we're going to do is instead, we're going to define a very basic page, starting out with this opening tag here called main. Main. Okay, doesn't want to autocomplete for me. All right, this is going to basically be the outermost tag, and everything else is nested inside of it. In regular HTML, it would be the body tag. but we're going to end up using some of that in our header file. So your header file is going to look very similar to this. You're going to have all kinds of information that's going to have stuff about like the scripts, etc., etc., etc. All right. This is all resources that you're drawing from to get Bootstrap, to get icons, to get jQuery. This is all stuff that we'll get to in the next class. This is more or less what it's going to look like. And you're going to have a nav bar that we'll set up. There's some PHP stuff that's going on in here that I'll explain in the next class, and we'll continue building out throughout the semester and modifying. But yeah. So that header file is going to be reused multiple times, which is why it's going to go in the includes folder. It's basically a helper file. So anyway, with our main right here, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to link to a style sheet that doesn't currently exist yet. We're going to put in link. Oops. In between here. And it may actually even be beneficial for you to do this in HTML so that you can, and then just copy and paste it afterwards. So that's what I'm going to do. Because this should give me autocomplete. Yeah, gives me autocomplete for some stuff. Oh, that's right. It's only a single tag. So you'll notice that there's a difference between these two, right? The main tag here has an opening and a closing tag. Closing tags always have a / right before the name of that element. Okay. Some tags, however, don't need a closing tag because all of their information is contained within the single tag, and it's just about their properties. So for example, we're defining a style sheet. All right, and we are going to do an href to our CSS folder, which is right here, because we're in the outermost directory right now. So we're going to go one hop in to CSS. CSS folder, and then it's going to be about.css. And all of our CSS changes will be in here now. So we're going to go into our CSS folder. We're going to hit new file, and we're going to do about.css. Oops, only 2 S's. All right, and this is where we're going to be able to start defining things after we get other tags set up. For example, we're going to have a class called about. And classes in HTML are very similar to classes that you'll find in in an object-oriented programming language like Java or Python. It's important to note, at least in Reddit's perspective, that HTML is not a programming language, it's a markup language. There is a salient point to that. It comes down to the fact that you can't do overly complex things. You can define certain qualities and like have inheritance with HTML properties and classes and so forth, but you can't do a whole lot else with it. It's basically just the skeleton of how something's supposed to look. It's the bare bones. All right. So anyway, we're going to have a div class. Oh, I'm in index.html. Our class is going to be about. So what divs are, it's called a division or divider. It allows us to segment up our web page into all kinds of smaller pieces, and it allows you to get really fine-grained control over what you want to do. what you want something to look like, how you want something to behave, how you want to group things together, we use divs all the time. We'll be using divs all the time in this class. So we're going to define an h1. This is going to be a big header. You'll notice that it auto-filled in with this closing tag for me. And I'm going to say about us. This is going to be my about us title. And then I'm going to have a little paragraph. P stands for paragraph. And this is basically just a little text area. And it's going to be a bunch of random gobbledygook.